Welcome to Centre Court for another week, all thanks to OMF, Australian designed and owned. I'm Bianca Chatfield and of course Maddie Brown is joining me. You got the memo, we must match the background today.
Oh, I know. And you know what? I thought I knew something about netball, but once again, this round of netball just shows that I don't know anything because I can't even pick the top 2, top 3, top 4. I don't even know what's happening anymore.
And you know what? What a round it was as well. We had the top 4 teams take on each other. We had the bottom 4 teams take on each other. So it's time to take a deeper look at it all. The weekend that was, all thanks to OMF. Upgrade your sleep game with a quality mattress from Australian designed and owned OMF. Let's get to the first game that happened. It was the Lightning and the Magpies. Now, you were up on the sunny coast for this game. How was it? Because it just felt like there was more than just that game going on.
Oh, there was a lot of emotion felt in it, and even when the Magpies walked out, the crowd stood up, a standing ovation, trying to wrap their kind of love and support around them. It was a hotly contested match, but the Lightning just had some changes. They used their bench, they brought on some different impact players at different moments, and just came through with the win in the end. It was that third quarter that really kind of let the Magpies down, and it was unfortunate because they were so close, and they seem to have played with that kind of passion and that reason why you start playing netball, because you love it, you're good at it. So it was great to see them enjoying their netball, but it just wasn't consistent enough, and the Lightning coming away with an extra 4 points.
A 4-goal win to the Lightning. Then it was the Thunderbirds and the Fever. Now, I was watching this game on the couch on Saturday night, and all game it looked like the Fever. And I don't know what happened in that second half, but Thunderbirds just stayed with them. They stuck to their processes. Matilda Garrett did a brilliant job on Sasha Glasgow. And Hannah Petty, to me, is a real standout at the moment. Coming on as a captain, you know, you always expect your captain to be on court, but the way she comes on, plays her role, is so strong and steady in the middle. I really enjoy watching her play.
Well, compared to the week before when they came up against the Vixens, they just didn't have that extra rotation in. So it just shows the importance, as you said, of Petty, even Dwan coming back in. Yes. It just shuffles their attacking lineup. For me, maybe that home court advantage came into play a little bit for the Thunderbirds. When they really needed the push, they stood up and they had that extra 9th player out on court with them in the crowd.
And the Pink Army, they got them through for another 1-goal win against the West Coast Fever. Then it was to Melbourne for the hometown fortress that is John Cain Arena. Usually it works in the favour of the Vixens, but not this time. The Swifts, they were in brilliant form. The way they played, they had just experts all over the court who really shut down the Vixens game.
They did, and the hardest thing about watching both of these teams is they play so much of the same brand. It's that real possession netball. Yes. They don't cough it up a lot, but once again, it was that premiership quarter, that third quarter that really let the Vixens down. And the strategy, I think, that the Swifts implemented in bringing Fawns on with the super shot, they really nailed their role players. She knew exactly what she needed to do. She came on, she shot those 2 points, and all of a sudden the deficit just blew out. And for the Vixens, they just didn't have those answers when they needed them.
The tactics. Bryony Aikle is certainly dominating at that game at the moment. All right, and the final game of the round was the Giants and the Firebirds. Now, I mean, I have to say, defensively, Remy Carmo and Ruby Bakewell-Doran, very impressive for the Firebirds.
They were, and I don't reckon anyone really expected this result, to be honest. I mean, obviously, Giants at home, but only scoring 50 goals when they are usually the super shot queens. So credit to the Firebirds once again. They know that their season is obviously, done for finals contentions, but they're going, all right, what are the other games that we can have during the season? So we know that, once we get to the end, we've had still some success and know exactly which direction we're going in moving forward.
Let's take a quick look at the ladder as it stands. Obviously, the top 4 is not going to change at all, but the Thunderbirds and the Swifts are sitting right up the top now, and the Fever and the Vixens, look at them down in that 3rd and 4th position. And the Magpies, sadly, they are on the bottom of the ladder right now, and I don't know how that's going to change, if that will change, but not a great way to be able to finish off their final season in the competition. Well, that was the weekend that was, all thanks to OMF, Australian designed and owned. It's now time to hand it over to you for Maddie's Minute.
Well, I guess last week there was a lot of talk about the Magpies announcing that they're not going to renew their franchise, and there's been a lot of talk on social media. So I just want to go to where are we at and where should we go as a league. So currently we have obviously 7 franchises. We need 8. We have 80 players coming off contract after the grand final. 40 are obviously going to come off sooner before those finals, but 80 out of contract. I don't really know another sport that has this happen where literally all of their talent are off. We then have the broadcasting rights that states that at the moment there needs to be 2 Melbourne or 2 Victorian teams or games played in Melbourne. So does that restrict where we should go? The other option or the other thing that we face is that the UK and the New Zealand leagues are going to be finishing soon. They're going to be starting to get their contracts going. So where do our players go if they do not get, or we do not get this CPA over and done with as soon as possible? So where can we go, Bianca? I guess there's a couple of options. I think we need to actually invest in maybe the state organisation body in Netball Victoria and support a local team here temporarily, maybe for 12 months, and give ourselves an option to then remodel, restructure our league and where we're at and go, well, do we have all teams linked with member organisations, or do we restructure it and have that separation and look to remodelling and prioritise, or have, you know, privately owned SSN teams? So I know that was longer than a minute, but it was hard to get out. But that's where we are. That's where I think we should go. And I love hearing everyone's comments online at the moment.
Yeah, totally. It's huge discussion points. And you know what? You can have as long as you want for Maddie's minute on that, because it's really hard to encapsulate the whole thing that's going on for both players, for staff, for organisations and for clubs too, and the whole league. I got the sense on the weekend that Netball Victoria are going to do everything they possibly can to try and keep that licence here in Victoria. I don't know how it will look. We've thrown up plenty of options. We're happy to throw up some more. And we know you at home are also happy to throw up plenty of options too. We love hearing them. Make sure you keep sending them through on our socials. But what do you think? Do you think a Victorian team, I know you said for 12 months, is it a chance, do you think, for everyone to reset and actually have a really good brainstorm about what is the best financially, what is the best position for us to be in going forward?
Yeah, and I think we need to really look, like Netball Australia needs to look at the structure that we're in at the moment and go, well, is this sustainable and is this going to be successful when we want to expand? And potential expansion is on the horizon, maybe in 2026. But give those teams maybe like a Tassie, even the Gold Coast has been spoken about, another 12 months to really see where they're at, make sure they've got departments that can facilitate this netball program, because we've seen that's not what happened at Collingwood and it didn't work. So yeah, 12 months, but invest in Netball Victoria, maybe get a regional team up and running and give them that support, and they can stay in the league. But we really do need to have a look at where we're at, because otherwise I feel like we'll fall to the wayside.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that was Maddie's minute and a lot more, but that's totally okay. It's now time for Take 5. And this time, I'm still having you in the hot seat for this, Mads, because I'm going to throw some questions at you that I've come up with. I want to know, First Nations round, we know that every team, so it's over 2 weeks, so every team gets a chance to host their own First Nations round. We've come a long way, haven't we?
We have, and I think it's so important that, you know, even this year over the SSN fixture, we've had a lot of themed rounds, but it's so important that we acknowledge the First Nations people within our sport, the contributions that they do. I love seeing the stories that are on the dresses, on the warm-up tops, obviously the welcome and acknowledgements to country. We saw some, you know, traditional First Nations dancing and everything. I just love the fact that, you know, we're supporting it, we're talking about it. And there was a really cool piece that they did online or on air, and it said, you know, who is your favourite player? And Danelle Wallen was a standout pick from a lot of the players, and said that she might not have wanted to have been the role model that she is, but she is exactly who we need in our sport to be able to kind of celebrate these wonderful people that are in and amongst us and doing incredible things.
Yeah, so great job so far. There's still plenty for us all to learn, but I think we're at least acknowledging it in the right way at the moment, and we can keep growing as much as we possibly can. All right, Vixens and Swifts rivalry. We saw that game. Vixens obviously were in form. Swifts are in form. We know, as being past Vixens players, how hard it is coming up against the Swifts. Doesn't matter what era of netball, the Swifts are always a tough ask. Why?
Well, and even looking at obviously the stats, it seems to go in years. When you win the first game, you win both of them in the home and around season. But, you know, we see this quote here from Bryony Akel. It's the Swifts against the Vixens. Netball netball's greatest rivalry. It is packed, the arenas, and it comes down to that mental edge, I think. A lot of these players have played a lot of nationals growing up. But it just shows it doesn't really matter where you're sitting on the ladder, as you mentioned. It comes down to, wow, you know, we've got this Sergeant McInnes Cup up for grabs, but I do think the game is technically won between the years at times.
Yes, totally agree. All right, my next one for you. The Fever. We know that they've been having they've had 4 losses by 1 goal. They've won 2 other games by 1 goal. I know Dan Ryan he puts it out there that it's okay because, you know, what counts in finals, we just want to make sure we learn as much as we can out of these losses and use that when it really counts. Is 4 losses by 1, though, starting alarm bells might be ringing, thinking, can we actually close out these games that are really important?
Oh, I think when they're getting close, or these games are in the balance, they're starting to play with that fear rather than playing with that freedom to just absolutely go, you know what, we can take the game on. And we see those teams that know how to take over those wins, they just let it go. They still take the risk, where I feel like the Fever are starting to go a little bit internal in those moments because they're like, oh, we've lost 4, we've only won 2 by 1. So it can start to play that little bit of a game in your head going, are we actually able to do it? So maybe not just yet. I think Dan Ryan's such an inspirational coach, but between those players I think there'd be some of that chat going, can we really do this? Because, they start to play with a bit more fear rather than freedom.
I've got the same feeling as you. You just don't want to write them off because you know how good they are and they could come
and how competitive Dan Ryan is.
Exactly.
He'll have him firing when it counts.
They could absolutely blow everyone away come the final series. Okay, my next one to you. We know Aussie selection is happening. We saw you up on the Sunny Coast interviewing Stacey Marinkovic. Do you think the team is already picked?
Yes.
Or do they rely on the next couple of weeks to try and finalise some of those selections?
Look, I mean, straight out answer is I think it is. There's two parts, or 3 parts to this. I think you definitely want to have players that are in form. You want to have them fit, but I think their experience on the international stage does have a play to part, because we've heard her speak about multiple times that you play different roles at your clubland compared to what you play at international. And just because you might be a shooter, you're playing with different feeders, the different feeders you play with at Diamond. So she's not really alarmed about that. Stacey Marinkovic can talk about they communicate with their players and the squad every single week and make sure that they feel comfortable and, regardless of the results and what's happening. But I do think it is pretty much locked in. We're going to find out in a couple of weeks after the home and away season who is going to Cape Town. And remember, it's not just 12, it's 15.
Yes.
So it extends it out a little bit. Maybe she picks the 15 and then goes, we'll pick out the 12 a little bit closer. I'm not sure what the specifications are on that, but
So there were no off-air chats after halftime?
No, I asked her for a date and she gave me nothing. So I've got to work on that trust game, I think.
Okay, just the final one. A quick one to you. You've been saying over the last few weeks your grand finalists are the Thunderbirds and the Vixens. Do you still stand by that?
No, I obviously know nothing about netball. I think after the weekend, you would say obviously all top four teams have had really close wins, really bad losses. So they're kind of lucky that the top 4 are secured. It's just that placing. But for me, you'd be wanting to make sure that, the deficit, if you are losing, isn't too much. But there's definitely some holes in everyone's blueprint on the way that they're playing. So yeah, I'd say no at this time. So don't ask me. Don't put your bets on me, that's for sure.
All right, let's take a look at the fixture coming up this weekend. It is round 12. We've got the Magpies and the Thunderbirds, the Fever and the Lightning, the Swifts and the Giants, and the Firebirds and the Vixens. Where will we be seeing you on Fox Netball this weekend, Mads?
Well, I'm actually going to be wrapping up the show on Pivot, so I'm going to be watching all 4 games really closely and doing the wrap on Sunday evening.
I'm doing Firebirds and Vixens, so I'll be throwing it over to you at Pivot Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Centre Court. All thanks to OMF Australia, designed and owned. We look forward to all of your feedback throughout the week, and we'll see you next week.